love we fear, bridges we burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough and it seems like your best ain't good enough, if you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be right here, right here. And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for
you. This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening and viewing friend. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who are tuning into the classroom for the first time, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide natural ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening and viewing friend, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Well, as you know, I am really excited. From the moment I met Dr. William Davis, I got really excited about the work that he was doing, the discoveries that he was sharing, and how people could transform their lives by understanding some key principles. And so Dr. William Davis is a cardiologist. He's a best-selling author. You've heard about the Wheat Belly series and Undoctored. And now we have Super Gut, and we're going to be doing a 6-week course with this 4-week program. You're going to get to meet Dr. William Davis yourself once you sign in. And we're going to learn about everything to take our health back, restore our microbiome, maybe release some weight, and just have overall health. And so today we're going to be talking about what are some of the principles that we need to follow for a healthy microbiome, for a healthy life as well. We're hearing about all these people kind of shortcutting what health is. And so I am just so grateful that Dr. William Davis is with us today, and we're going to be talking about how to begin this process of acquiring the life, the gut, the health that we want. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Dr. William Davis is here to do just that. Welcome, Dr. Davis, to the classroom. I'm so glad to see you. I was beginning to think you weren't there anymore.
Thanks, Lily. Always good to be here.
It's so wonderful that you are here. So share a little bit about your background and what brought you from cardiology to really focusing on the gut.
It became clear, Lily, especially after my mom died of sudden cardiac death after her successful 2-vessel coronary angioplasty. It became clear that trying to manage heart disease, as I was doing, I had just moved from Cleveland, Ohio to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, because they brought me in to set up all the new technologies in the 90s. And so they brought me in and I did that. Then my mom died in New Jersey of the same disease that I was managing in a cath laboratory. But it was a vivid illustration, really a hit upside the head, that managing a dangerous disease like coronary disease, heart attacks, sudden cardiac death, angina, all that stuff, this is not how this disease should be managed. And so it took many years, but I found better ways to manage coronary disease, because the conventional ways, which is pretty much cut your saturated fat, take a statin cholesterol drug, reduce your cholesterol, take a baby aspirin, an exercise program, does not work. It has almost zero impact on the potential for heart attack and other cardiovascular events. So when you ask the experts, they call, for instance, a baby aspirin, a statin cholesterol drug at high dose, a exercise program, they call that optimal medical therapy, even though we help publish the data that it does nothing. And so what do you do with people if you really want to give them power to control cardiovascular risk? Well, one of the things that I did was reject this whole nonsense of cholesterol, reducing cholesterol. There is no value in reducing cholesterol. Cholesterol is meant to be an indirect marker for the real particles that cause heart disease. Well, you can measure those real particles, lipoproteins. And it became clear, not my data, other people's data from UC, University of California, Berkeley, Hopkins, and other universities, that there's the real cause, among the real causes for heart disease, not cholesterol, but small LDL particles, because they're very different. They're able to get inside your arteries, in the walls. They're adherent. They're more likely to provoke inflammation. They last 5 to 7 days compared to 24 hours of a large LDL particle that comes from consumption of fat. So I asked this question: where do these small LDL particles come from? Well, the science is very clear. It has been for 30 years, Lily. Wheat, grains, and sugars, period. Not fat, not saturated fat, not bacon, not pork, not beef, not butter. Wheat, grains, and sugars. The foods, at least the wheat and grains, advocated by the American Heart Association, by the USDA, by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, by the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. Those foods are clearly provokers of the small LDL, not to mention also blood sugar and other problems. So when I took wheat and grains out of the diet to reduce people's small LDL particles, small LDL would drop to the floor. A typical number would be 1,800 nanomoles per liter, particle count per volume, drops to 0 or some other low number. But people started telling me all these unexpected health effects. They'd say, oh, that's great, my small LDL is gone now. But you didn't tell me I'd lose 73 pounds.
Wow.
You didn't tell me I'd no longer have high blood pressure or high triglycerides. You didn't tell me I would no longer be hungry. My appetite has shrunk dramatically. You didn't tell me I'd lose 8 inches off my waist. So I stumbled into this, Lily, for the purposes of helping people deal with cardiovascular risk and small LDL particles. But it really showed me just how powerful it could be to address diet, but specifically do the opposite of what we're all told.
Well, it's wonderful that you would stumble upon something, but you were paying attention. There's a lot of people that stumble upon things and still don't pay attention and continue to do what they're being told by traditional training, especially since all you gentlemen and ladies that are doctors, they spend a lot of money and they don't want to fight the system. It's a lot easier to join it than to fight against it. So what made you want to say, okay, listen, I'm going to beat my own drum here and I'm going to show the evidence and be okay with it?
Anger.
But anger's not good for you. I'm a life coach. Okay, keep going. I was just joking.
Cases like this, Lily, a young school teacher in Milwaukee, and she came to me in consultation for a very minor problem. And so I didn't dive into the whole program, but she'd sit across the room with me, clutching her abdomen. And I'd say, what's wrong? And she said, well, my ulcerative colitis is really acting up. I'm getting blood transfusions every 2 to 3 months because I'm bleeding all the time. I have constant diarrhea and abdominal pain. I'm on 3 drugs. And now because it's not working and I'm bleeding, they want to take my colon out. So I said, oh, you know what? You came here for a relatively minor problem. I haven't gotten deep into the program. But let me tell you what I do with other people, especially for coronary disease, heart attack, et cetera. I say, we engage in a diet where we eliminate wheat and grains. She says, oh, no, we don't have to do that. They biopsied me twice for celiac disease. They checked the blood markers for celiac disease. I don't have it. I said, I understand that. This is not about celiac disease. What do you have to lose? You're going to have your colon removed. So she's like, okay. She comes back in about 4 weeks. I said, tell me what happens. One, she bounds up, jumps on the table. She says, within a week, all the bleeding stopped. All the diarrhea stopped. I stopped one of the drugs. 2 weeks pass. I feel better than I have in years. 4 weeks pass. She has no more ulcerative colitis, and she lost 38 pounds.
Wow.
So,
wow.
And she was convinced that there was something to this. Well, she went back to the gastroenterologist who had advocated for removing her colon. And she said to him, look at me. I feel better than I have in years. I don't have ulcerative colitis anymore. And I'm slender and healthy. And he says, what did you do? And she says, "Why, I went on this program to eliminate all wheat and grains." And he says, "Oh, it's a coincidence. Go back to what you were doing."
Oh no.
You made the crucial point. He was not, oh, what he should have said was, of course, "What did you do? What did I miss?
Yep,
Should I learn something from this
that's
unusual
right.
experience?" And he did not. He dismissed it offhand. This happened, as you would expect, Lily, over and over and over again with my colleagues, confronted with diabetics who are no longer diabetic, people with ulcerative colitis no longer having ulcerative colitis, people with hypertension, high triglycerides, fatty liver, you name it, gone, gone. And yet they said, we just do what you're doing. Not the least bit curious. And that made me mad.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. But you know what? What's that expression? Don't get mad, get even. I think that what you're doing is that you're even out the playing field because you have a great following. People trust what you're saying, and they also see in your books the science as well. I was looking as I was preparing for today's class. I was looking at the recipes in the back of the book, and for the first time, I really thought, okay, when we're talking about grains, at what place do we stop? Do we stop at corn, or do we stay with, do we stop with certain grains? Because you were looking at, there's potatoes, and you were saying that in the book, there's like recipes for parsnip. Is it parsnip or cauliflower potatoes or whatever? So share a little bit about what is a grain that we should avoid like as fast as possible. What are some of those grains?
Lily, it's people don't think of grains or they're grasses. They come from grasses, seeds of grasses. We don't think of them as being promiscuous, but they are. They share genetics. So rye, for instance, originated as a weed in wild wheat fields and thereby acquired a lot of the same genetics as it looks and tastes different if you made bread out of it. But genetically, it's almost identical. It's like humans and chimpanzees,
Or humans and pigs, because you could do a pig valve, I always say when you eat pork that you're eating like your little brother. I know that might not be the way you think, but that's how I think. But okay, so right, go ahead. So you're talking about how that could be not good for us. So it isn't good for me. That's my worst allergy is rye.
So there are multiple components that are shared among all the grains: wheat, corn, millet, sorghum, rice, barley, rye, and some others. Triticale, ones people don't typically buy. But they all share characteristics. For instance, they all have the carbohydrate amylopectin A, which raises blood sugar higher than table sugar. So you can imagine if you tell the nation to consume more healthy whole grains. By the way, there's almost no real difference between whole grains and white flour enriched products. They're all virtually the same, except for the inclusion of fiber and B vitamins in whole grains. But it's like low tar cigarettes. Most of the components of tobacco are still there. So even if you have whole grains, a lot of the nasty things are still there, like the amylopectin A that raises blood sugar sky high and is the factor that causes an explosion in small LDL particles leading to heart disease.
Oh, wow.
So any diet that says cut your fat, eat more healthy whole grains is, we say, an atherogenic diet. It's heart disease causing.
Wow.
And most grains have wheat germ agglutinin, which not gluten, but agglutinin, which means it causes blood clotting. So wheat germ agglutinin is a very potent bowel toxin. So when you consume something made of grains, it contains wheat germ agglutinin, which is extremely inflammatory and irritating to the gastrointestinal lining. Then there's gliadin and related proteins. So the gliadin in wheat, it's called cecolin in rye, it's called hordein in barley, it's called avenin in oats, it's called zein in corn. These are a group of proteins called prolamins. They're called that because they're rich in proline sequences that humans are unable to digest. And so gliadin and related proteins, upon partial digestion, down to about, so if I eat an egg or other protein, our digestive enzymes break it down to single amino acids. When you consume the proteins of wheat and grains, it's broken down into peptides, or several amino acid long fragments. Well, among the most important of those fragments is gliadin-derived opioid peptides. So the fragments of peptides that come from the gliadin protein of wheat and other proteins and other grains act as opioids in the human brain, and they stimulate appetite. So people who are grain consumers say things like, I had breakfast at 7, I had a bowl of oatmeal or 2 slices of toast, some eggs. 8:30, I'm hungry again. I have a snack. 11 o'clock, I'm hungry again, counting the minutes till lunch. I have a sandwich, say, at noon. I'm hungry again at 2. Or they consume a big bowl of pasta. They're filled to bursting, yet they're still hungry. So there's this unnatural increase in appetite that makes the person struggle to control that. You see this in its worst case in people with binge eating disorder or bulimia. These are people who have 24-hour-a-day food obsessions, sufficient to take a chair in front of the refrigerator at night and binge and then go to the bathroom and puke, put their finger down their throat and puke. These people will tell me, for the first time in 20 or 30 years, I am completely freed of 24-hour-a-day food obsessions. I am in full control of my appetite.
Wow.
So that's a gliadin-derived opioid effect. The gliadin protein of wheat, related proteins and other grains, are also the initiating factor in multiple autoimmune conditions. Not my speculation. The science is very good here. In other words, when you're told, cut your fat, eat more healthy whole grains, you're being given a diet that initiates autoimmune diseases.
Wow.
Rheumatoid arthritis, type 1 diabetes in kids, and others.
So when I'm hearing you say, okay, so you mentioned rye, corn, millet, sorghum, rice, barley, and you went on with that list. So in your diet, and what do you eat for breakfast, for example? What would you eat for breakfast, or do you skip breakfast altogether? Because there seems to be a myth that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, especially if you're eating a donut and a glass of milk. It's like, oh, that's going to be the breakfast of champions. So some people think, but it's not. It's again, it's got the grains in there. So what would you suggest somebody eat for breakfast if they have breakfast, or should they just skip breakfast altogether?
Well, a novel concept, Lily. Eat when you're hungry.
Ah, yes.
So if you're hungry for breakfast, go ahead. Now, part of this argument of eliminating seeds of grasses, that is wheat and grains, we're also going to reject this cut your fat, cut your saturated fat argument. Lily, there never was good evidence that this was a necessary thing and that reducing, say, saturated fat reduces cardiovascular risk. There is no good evidence of that. There's lousy evidence, really weak evidence, and there's more recent analyses that suggest that that was completely useless. And so if I'm going to have breakfast because I'm hungry, but you make an excellent point, sometimes you're not hungry till 11 in the morning.
Yeah.
And so if you want to delay your first meal, that's okay. But I'll have, say, 3 eggs with some sausage. I'd like to throw some kimchi in there for some microbes. Maybe some of the yogurt with some berries. And let's say I did that at 8 o'clock in the morning. You won't be hungry till maybe dinner time. So the whole landscape of appetite and meals is completely changed. A lot of people who follow these ideas say they eat only twice a day, or 1 main meal and 1 small meal, or something along those lines. In other words, it's completely different than you're held hostage by grains and bad dietary advice. You hear even outrageously silly things like eat many small meals every 2 hours, which, by the way, is a very dangerous thing to do.
That's what I was told growing up, because I was hypoglycemic, and later found out that that's just not real. And it's just the way I was eating that made me. It's what Dr. Furman calls toxic hunger. It's like toxins kind of leaving your body. So that's what we know. We don't really know hunger. We really don't. Most people don't know hunger. It's just toxicity leaving the body. So in a situation like that, what do you say? You're having, people saying, well, I'm not hungry, or maybe I do need to eat. And but let's say, for example, like someone like me, I have food sensitivities. I can't eat eggs. I'll break out in hives. I can't have dairy. I'll bend over backward. I'll bend over in pain. So someone like me, what do you suggest for me? because
So
I
the
can't have
great
the eggs, and I don't eat bacon. So with that in mind, oh, I want to clarify the food, the meats that you eat. Do you have like principles for that, or some regulations, like we hear about nitrates, we hear about all these other hormones added, and antibiotics added. What do you look for when you eat and you choose your meat?
one, never buy lean cuts. You want the cuts that have fat and marbling. And if you make
Wow, that's totally different than they tell us, right? Yeah.
like chicken, never boneless, skinless chicken breast. Never, never. You want the skin. You want the dark meat. You want the bone. What you really want is the whole chicken or whole animal.
Okay.
So people talk about bone broth. Bone broth is a really bad idea. People have not talked enough about how bone broth is a source of lead. Very few nutrients and mostly a source for lead. Now, it gets better if you include the marrow. So a better way to make soups and broths is not bone broth. It's what it's going to sound very unappetizing, but carcass broth.
Carcass.
So you get that whole chicken, you bake it, you eat the meat and skin, whatever organs you can get, like liver, heart, tongue, etc., and then boil the carcass, because the carcass has some bones, has bone marrow, has ligaments and tendons, maybe throw whatever skin's remaining, and if you have any organs, that's what you want, because that, by the way, provides a lot of collagen and hyaluronic acid. These are things that ladies will often, like hyaluronic acid, they'll put it on their skin and pay a lot of money too, by the way, Lily, as you know. And then at night, they wash it off. There's no, it doesn't increase your health nor the health of your skin. So you should take it orally. And the best way to get is that carcass of that animal.
So what is the difference between having the bone and having the carcass?
So if you only do bone and you do it, say, 24 hours, and you add, say, some vinegar, like a lot like that, apple cider vinegar, there's about 9 micrograms of lead in a liter, in about a quart. Now, the USDA and other agencies say, one, there's no safe level of lead,
right,
including no safe level in water, but will tolerate up to 15 micrograms. But there's a push to reduce that to 10 micrograms per liter. Well, bone broth has 9 micrograms of lead per liter. So use less bone. What bone you have should have marrow in it, but include the softer tissues, the ligaments, tendons, skin. That's what you want.
In the broth. So you're cooking everything whole, and then you peel the meat off of it, and then you put everything else, and you have it in the soup, and you put it in the water so that you can boil it. Okay, that's good. That's good. That's good to know. That's good to know, because I always throw away all those things. I throw them away. I throw away the turkey neck, the giblets, all that, when I make that for my family, because they love when I make that for them. And so I've thrown it away. I've never kept it. So you're saying boil that too, cook that too?
So the low-fat message of the last 40, 50 years, Lily, has led to all these, it uncovers all the mistakes that message causes you to make, such as throwing away the organs, not eating the skin, right? Not making carcass broth, cutting the fat off meats. These are all wrong, but it took the low-fat blundering to teach us these lessons. So in answer to your original question, what's for breakfast? When you don't restrict fat, it opens the door for so many delicious things.
So avocado, I like eating avocados in the morning. And sometimes I'll throw some strawberries and some shredded coconut in there with some walnuts. Is that good?
Terrific. Yeah.
Okay. Yay. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Because I know that the way I eat is different. This is new for me. I'm learning something different and new, and I'm open to it, because not every diet is created equal. Not every person is created to eat. And I know that there is some people that say, you can find out what your type is for your nutrition type. I forget the name, it just escapes me, but there's like a test that you can take to find out what your your type is. And I'm trying to remember that first part of the
Well, you want to address that food intolerance issue?
yes, food intolerance.
So all these food intolerances that are applying to more and more modern people, whether it's eggs or nuts or legumes or fruit or FODMAPs containing foods, fiber and sugar, or histamine containing foods, or nightshades, or from blood testing for the IgG antibodies against food. These are all, not 100%, but close, all reflections of SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth.
And we talked about that last time you were in the
Mhm.
classroom. Yeah, yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with the food. It's the location of microbes, because we've been exposed to antibiotics. We've been exposed to other things that disrupt the gastrointestinal microbiome, like glyphosate, the herbicide, other drugs like stomach acid blocking drugs. We need stomach acid because after the colon, the mouth is the second most densely populated area of the body with microbes. So if you don't have stomach acid, the microbes you swallow colonize the stomach and upper bowel, duodenum and jejunum.
Mm.
Likewise, if you don't have stomach acid, fecal microbes will ascend up into the small bowel and stomach. So small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And that's what causes the vast majority of these food intolerances. So you can eliminate the food to reduce bloating and diarrhea, but the real solution is to address the disrupted microbiome.
And we're going to be addressing that in the 6-week course that we're going to be taking. It starts August 1st. And every Tuesday, we're going to be getting together. If you can't make the 7 to 9 time frame, Eastern time, we're going to be recording everything. So I just want to make sure that you sign up. It's whenyouneedafriend.com. I am so excited. We're going to be learning from Dr. William Davis. Every week, we're going to come together. We're going to get to know each other, build a community, and we're going to do the super gut together. And we're going to learn so much, even beyond the book. There's some recipes in the book. So this is one thing that I have been so busy that, but it's so important for me to do. I want to get the SIBO out of me before we start this. And anyone who signs up will get a free video with Dr. Davis showing how to get rid of the SIBO. And I want everybody to know that, that we have been creating the way we feel. And I've been creating the way we feel because I'm thinking I'm eating healthy. I'm eating, oatmeal, and I'm eating fruits and vegetables, and I'm eating all those things. But if I'm not addressing the problem, it's going to continue to exhaust me. It's going to continue to exacerbate. And, I see so many people, Dr. Davis, that they try to take shortcuts. They want a quick fix. And you and I were talking off the air, and I want to address this because there's a lot of people that are cutting out their stomachs, and they're doing all these things. And I will tell you, I can have a conversation with just about anybody, and I can agree to disagree. It's no skin off my nose. It was the first time that I felt that I could not contain myself was when I interviewed a bariatric doctor. And we were talking, it was the beginning of my journey. It was at the beginning of my journey, and a good friend of mine had gastric bypass surgery, and I wanted to be supportive and learn and see if this is an option. But this is what the doctor said to me on the air, and I could not contain myself. I knew better. So he said that before people subject themselves to cutting out their stomach, they have to lose at least 40 or some pounds. And so I said, okay, I'm with you there, but why can't they continue? If they've gotten to 42, why are they going to remove their stomach if they've gotten to 40 pounds, maybe 50 pounds? Why would that make sense? And he said this to me, because they have a bacteria in their stomach and they will never be able to lose weight unless they do this. I lost it. I don't even know if we have that show posted as I was
justifiably.
I was like, okay, so here's what I'm hearing you say. You're going to cut off your stomach. And so I said, but people do gain the weight. And he goes, oh, but they're going to have to maintain. That's it. That was what got me like, what? they're going to have to eat moderately. They have to eat well. Well, why can't they eat well before you cut off their stomach? And that's when he said to me, oh, because they have this little like bug or whatever in their stomach that's going to keep them from losing the weight and keeping to their diet. When all we need to do is learn new truths about nutrition that will support us. So if there's anybody out there, listen, I'm not trying to judge anyone who's done bariatric surgery, but I know well enough, everybody who I know, who I supported to do whatever they needed to do, whether I agreed with it or not, have gained the weight back within 2 to 3 years. It's sad. And now they don't have a stomach. Can you talk about that?
So these are all these methods for losing weight, like cutting calories, the drugs, including the so-called drugs like Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, Rybelsus, or even bariatric procedures like you're talking about, gastric bypass, lap band, and all its variations. Those are all variations on the same theme. They all reduce calories. Well, as you point out, the problem with that is when you lose weight by cutting calories by whatever means, you also lose muscle. It varies, but approximately 1/3 of the weight you lose is lost muscle. So if you lose 30 pounds, about 10 pounds is muscle. Now, muscle is the primary determinant of your metabolic rate, your basal metabolic rate. So it's very common. You go through one of those procedures. You take one of the drugs, you cut calories in diet, or you have a bariatric procedure, you lose weight and muscle, and then the weight comes back, even if you maintain a low-calorie diet, because you're not burning calories the same as you should. So it's typical to lose about 15 to 27% of your basal metabolic rate. It's lower. And so you'll see all these people go through all these procedures, such as a risky and expensive gastric bypass, or $30,000 worth of Ozempic or Wegovy, stop the drug, or a couple of years after the procedure, and it all comes back. And by the way, when it comes back, Lily, it comes back almost all fat. Only a little bit of muscle returns. So when you're actually more unhealthy than when you started, because a lot of that fat is abdominal fat. And the real fat that really causes health problems is the abdominal fat. Not so much the fat on your buttocks or thighs or shoulders or chest. It's the fat in your abdomen. So when you regain the weight, most of it's in the abdomen. You're less, so the evidence is clear, by the way. You take one of those weight loss drugs, you regain the weight, and a lot of people become diabetics. They increase their risk for breast cancer, cognitive impairment and dementia, coronary disease, stroke, and other health conditions. And so don't cut calories. Don't take the drugs. Don't have a bariatric procedure. There's a very easy and rational way to lose weight. But it means you're going to have, as you point out, you have to change your diet. We're going to have to talk about a few common nutrients to replace that are lacking in a modern diet that influence your insulin response. And you're going to have to take some efforts to address your microbiome. And that's how you lose weight. When you do it that way, it's selective for losing abdominal visceral fat. And when you lose abdominal visceral fat, the other fat follows much faster. And you don't lose muscle. You may even gain some muscle. So sometimes people get mad at me, say, I'm doing this program and I gained 8 pounds. I said, did you look in the mirror? They say, well, yeah, my waist is much smaller and I have more muscles. So what we're really doing is not so much weight loss as much as changing body composition back to the way you were when you were young.
Okay, so you mentioned Ozempic, and this seems to be the latest fad. I had not heard about it. I learned from a young girl, and she said, can you please do a show on Ozempic, because she has some friends that are taking this. To me, has this been FDA approved as a weight loss, as like an off-label use for weight loss? Is that what happened? I mean, what happened here?
Right. So they were approved.
It's a diabetic drug, right? Okay.
They're called GLP agonists because they activate a hormone that reduces blood sugar. But it was incidentally noted that these people lose a lot of weight. And so there's now drugs like Wegovy and Mounjaro that are approved for weight loss. By the way, these are expensive drugs, and some people pay for it out of their pockets, $1,000 to $1,500 a month. A lot of insurers are starting to pay for it, which means people like you and me and your listeners will bear the burden of billions of dollars. So your healthcare premium is going to go up. Your Medicare premium is going to go up because these people are using this drug that, in my view, should never have been approved by the FDA in the first place. Because had they looked at the long-term outcomes where people lose weight, regain it, mostly all fat, they're less healthy than they were at the start. We're likely to see long-term health complications from that, yet it costs a lot of money. And this, you may have heard this issue that made headlines in the New York Times, Ozempic face. And what that refers to is people will lose the weight before regaining, and they look like they aged 10 or 20 years.
Oh,
And that's because you lose some subcutaneous fat and you lose muscle. So you look like you aged a whole bunch on these drugs. And so it's wrong for a variety of reasons. The basic premise of strategies to reduce calories is silly and it's counterproductive. But there are ways to lose weight very effectively, Lillian, but it has nothing to do with drugs, has nothing to do with lap band or bariatric surgery, has nothing to do with cutting calories. In fact, I tell people never limit calories. Eat what you want.
yeah. I eat a lot, and it's embarrassing how much I eat, but I find myself hungry, and now I know when I'm hungry, I've eaten grains. I grew up in a Spanish household, so rice and beans was very popular, and so I grew up with a lot of rice. And now I know there's arsenic in the rice, and so I go and I get rice that's organic from India, and so I can avoid that. But lately, when I did the M-Cube detox experience, which is the mold, metals, microbes, and it's a detox, I really wasn't hungry. And it was because we stopped the grains. We didn't eat a lot of the grain. We didn't eat rice. We didn't eat corn. We didn't eat potatoes. We didn't eat any of those things. It was almost like a keto diet, but I put a lot more vegetables in mine because I guess because of the SIBO in me, I process vegetables a little bit easier, but that doesn't mean that's even that I'm as healthy as I could be if I got rid of the SIBO. So, it's amazing how when we change, even the healthiest eater, the person that thinks they're doing it healthy, could be doing it all wrong. So before we switch, because I want to make sure that people go to whenyouneedafriend.com, because I do want to talk about super gut, and I want to talk about what alternatives they can eat, because it sounds like if you can eat anything you want, it won't feel like a diet, but you need to eat a certain way. I mean, it's like you need to avoid the grains. You need to avoid some certain foods, and we're going to be talking about that in a minute. But go to whenyouneedafriend.com. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe, like, and follow me on all social media. Share this video with your friends and go, hey, you want to lose weight? You can eat whatever you want, but these are some of the things you can't eat. So anyway, just get started. And then, of course, you know that we're going to be talking about this in a little bit. But so go check out my sponsors, support them the way that they're supporting the classroom. We're also, I want you to go to with Dr. Davis with his website as well. It's drdavisinfinitehealth.com. He's got groups that you can join. Hopefully you will join our group that we're doing together. I want you to go to the Shop Now bag or the workshop. When you click on whenyouneedafriend.com, Dr. Davis's picture pops up, because we want you to know that we're about health. Even if you think that you're the healthiest eater, we could always learn and grow and learn something different and new. And Dr. Davis is going to guide us every step of the way. So go there and learn a little bit about it. Also, go to my Shop Now bag, which I have Lilly approved products. I was telling Dr. Davis before the class today that I've been able to build muscle for the first time in my life because of B3 Science. And if you go to my Shop Now bag, you'll learn a little bit more about that. So if you want to become lean and build some muscles, you can do it rapidly. So I'm just really excited. Oh, and by the way, you can also become an enrolled student in the classroom, whether it's $1 or $1,000 a month, or a one-time donation, or of your time, your talent, your treasure, whatever you can do. Even sharing this video is being a part of giving back to the classroom. So, go to whenyouneedafriend.com. Please help out in any way that you can. Today, we're talking with Dr. Davis, and we're talking about some principles, some key principles that we may have missed. And maybe, not one diet doesn't fit all. Everybody's unique and individual, and maybe we can just uncover what is keeping you, what is keeping me from the optimal health that I desire, that you desire. So if you want to go to drdavisinfinitehealth.com, you can learn more about Dr. Davis. You can go to whenyouneedafriend.com and you can start your journey with us. It starts on August 1st. It's called Super Gut, and the book is a 4-week plan to reprogram your microbiome, restore your health, and I say release weight, but it says and lose weight. But so this is a place where we're gonna learn with Dr. Davis. Dr. Davis, thank you so much for doing that. I know that you talked earlier about yogurt, but it's not really yogurt. You have some incredible recipes here that will help with the right microbes in our stomach. But before we do that, I need to, and anyone who could possibly have SIBO, which you did say it was like what, 80%, 90% of the population? What was
I think conservatively, Lily, 50%, half the US population has it.
That's right. So 50% of the population. So I believe I'm included in that. And every time I say something to Dr. Davis, he says, it's because you have SIBO. It's like, duh, Lily, duh. You got to get this, get with the program. Okay, so Dr. Davis, I really appreciate that you're going to be doing this with us. And it's a 6-week course. We're going to come together, learn and grow together, and go through the 4-week program with Dr. Davis. And at the end of on the 6th week, we get to share our stories so that Dr. Davis has a more ammunition. So Dr. Davis, let's talk a little bit more about, some of these substitutions, because I never really thought of substituting grain. I really just had to cut grain off when we did the M-Cube detox experience. What are some of your tips? What are some of the things that you can share with us that will help us get back on track?
Lily, people have been so brainwashed into believing that grains must be the centerpiece of your diet. They panic when we say, get rid of the wheat and grains. They say, what's left to eat? Well, there's plenty left to eat, but we prefer whole foods. That is, an avocado, an egg, steak, chicken, fish, vegetables, whole foods, because whole foods tend to be least processed, least changed, least additives, compared to cellophane wrapped, multi-ingredient, unpronounceable name stuff you get at the grocery store. So most of us, when we go shopping, for instance, hang out at the produce aisle and the butcher aisle, and maybe the dairy aisle to some degree. Rarely go into the internal aisle, maybe for laundry detergent, but
we could make your own.
You could do that too.
Yeah.
So it's just a return to real foods. And that alone is a huge step. Now, there's more you can do. So one of the strategies I advocate is, so SIBO, you could go to your gastroenterologist, and if he even knew what it was, and didn't say, did you consult Dr. Google again, Lily? Or there's nothing wrong with you. We didn't see anything during your colonoscopy.
Yeah.
So there's astounding ignorance because the science is so new. It's going to take a generation or two for my colleagues to catch up, sadly.
Well, that would be the first time. That would be the first time. But it took 20 years for hand washing to take off in the medical profession. 20 years. Okay, keep going. I'm sorry. I digress.
So if the gastroenterologist knew what SIBO was and recognized the symptoms like food intolerances or undigested fat in the toilet or fibromyalgia, restless leg syndrome that are virtually synonymous with SIBO, and some other conditions. If he or she did recognize, they would hand you a prescription for Xifaxan or rifaximin. That's an antibiotic. It's not very good. It's very expensive. It has about 50 to 60% efficacy. And there's no conversation typically on how you got the SIBO, how you can increase the efficacy, nor how you can prevent the very common recurrences. The recurrence is the rule after a few months. So I did something different, Lily. I asked, what if we got microbes that colonize the upper GI tract, the small bowel? That's where SIBO occurs. What if we chose microbes that produce what are called bacteriocins? these are natural antibiotics that some species produce. So I chose 3. I chose a strain of Lactobacillus reuteri, a strain of Lactobacillus gasseri, and a strain of Bacillus coagulans. Now, so those 3 produce bacteriocins, and the first 2, reuteri and gasseri, colonize the upper GI tract. We ferment them as yogurt, not like the stuff in the store. I kind of regret calling it yogurt. It's not yogurt, but it looks and smells like yogurt. But we're going to ferment it for an extended period. So, for instance, Lactobacillus reuteri, microbes don't have sex, right? There's no male and female microbes. So they have asexual reproduction. One microbe recreates itself, and now you have 2. 2 becomes 4, like that. Well, reuteri doubles every 3 hours. So we let it go for 36 hours. It doubles 12 times, and we count the microbes using something called flow cytometry. We get about 300 billion counts per half cup serving. In other words, we're amplifying the bacterial counts about 1,000-fold by doing this. And it yields something close to yogurt. We have a half a cup a day with blueberries and chia seeds or whatever. And so far, Lily, my expectations were low that this would eradicate SIBO, but so far, of about 40 people who've done this, 90% have eradicated their SIBO. And we know that because there's a consumer device. I don't have mine here.
Yeah. Yes. Go ahead. Keep talking. I was supposed to talk to her today, and we weren't able to. But keep going, because I'm really interested in that. Keep sharing about the air.
So there's a consumer device called the AIR device, as you point out, AIRE, made by the Food Marble Company, that is now you can use to measure hydrogen gas on the breath. Now, people don't need to buy that device if you want to know if you have SIBO. There are so many signs you can use, like food intolerances, et cetera. But if you want to, you have an option now for about $150 to $190, something like that. You can get one of these devices. It's very easy. You blow into it, and it registers 0 to 10 your smartphone. Any rise in values of 4 or more signifies that you have microbes, SIBO. Now, there's a very specific way to use this. So you have to follow a little simple protocol, because what the AIR device really is a mapping device. It maps out where microbes are residing in your GI tract, because microbes produce hydrogen gas, you do not. So we get a baseline level, for instance, let's say 1.2, consume something that microbes metabolize or eat. A good one is inulin powder. You can buy at the health food store. Put maybe 2 teaspoons in your coffee or other food, and you can eat too, and then test again 30 to 45 minutes later, up to 90 minutes. If there's a rise of 4 or more units, you're positive for SIBO. So you'll know, and this is really helpful for recurrences, because one of the difficulties with recurrence, Lily, is let's say you started out because you had fibromyalgia, muscle and joint pain, and a lot of diarrhea and bloating. You eradicate your SIBO, your hydrogen gas in the breath is normalized, but then 6 months later, you have a panic attack. And you test, I'm positive, because when SIBO recurs, it can have a different symptom profile than the original one. And that's because SIBO can vary in which microbes are causing. Maybe the original SIBO was dominated by E. coli and Salmonella. And then the recurrence maybe is dominated by Enterococcus and Streptococcus. So it can be a different collection of symptoms. So that's where the device is really helpful. But you don't have to have the device. And you know, Lily, if the solution to SIBO was something really nasty, like colon removal or exploratory laparotomy, well, we better be damn certain this is necessary. But what if the potential solution is something akin to yogurt? Well, the bar is much lower. In fact, you don't have to have SIBO to enjoy the yogurt, because those microbes are microbes you should have had anyway, but you've lost because of exposure to antibiotics. So what you're really doing is restoring keystone or foundational microbes. So what we've been doing is do 4 weeks of the SIBO yogurt with or without the AIR device, and then maybe do it twice a week, 3 times a week, to keep the recurrences from coming back. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing we're not seeing recurrent SIBO anymore, with some exceptions, of course. Everybody's situation a little different. And by the way, if there is recurrence or there's a real struggle, then you got to ask why. So there's a list of things it's on the Super Gut book, by the way.
Yes.
It could be because your thyroid's not in order. It could be because you have lack of stomach acid, and there's some other causes. So we go through this logically, methodically, and we're seeing more and more and more people get better, finally lose the weight they want to lose, get rid of their food intolerances, drop their blood sugar, get rid of their fibromyalgia, be relieved of irritable bowel syndrome, improve their ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease, on and on and on. So, who would have thought that microbes dwelling in the gastrointestinal tract could have effects on every organ in the rest of the body? But you can address that by, and I would propose that you start with SIBO yogurt because it's so benign.
Yeah, and we're going to come up with a AKA, also known as what, by the time we're done with our 6 week, we're going to come up with a really, really fun name for it, for the yogurt. So you can join. The link is going to be in the description for the super gut. Please join. And if you have SIBO, how long does it take to kind of get SIBO under control, or maybe even get it out of your body? What is the average?
Well,
Because we have,
with the SIBO yogurt, Lily, it's 4 weeks. An occasional person has it so bad. The people who say things like, "Oh, I took antibiotics for years,"
yeah.
some problem. Well, those people may need to do it for months. If it's an antibiotic, whether it's an herbal antibiotic or conventional like Xifaxan, typically 2 weeks, 14 days.
Oh, well, I am looking forward to this because I do have low acid because they put me on acid blockers many, many years ago. I was on lots of asthma medication, got off all my asthma medication shortly after I started the show with Dr. Andrew Saul. He said, Lily, I can help you get off all your asthma medication. And I was on some major stuff. And one of them was compared to chemotherapy. And I was on that drug for 9 years. So I'm sure that there's still some side effects of all of that. And I'm telling you, since 2013, when I interviewed Dr. Andrew Saul, who I've interviewed many times after that, I've just taken vitamin C. And so when you know better, you do better. And so I want to encourage all of you to go down, click the description and click the link for the Super Gut course that we're going to be taking. It's an experience with Dr. Davis, because it's time to stop. Instead of saying stop the bleeding, we're going to have to stop something, stop the diarrhea, stop the bloating, stop the feeling sick all the time, and every choice that we make is going to get us closer to health or closer to disease. Dr. Davis, we're getting closer to the end. We've got maybe a few minutes, like maybe 5 minutes left in the class, and I just wanted to kind of recap some of the things. Like, okay, if you can't have grains, what can you have? What are some great substitutions for grain?
So we return, as we've talked about, to whole foods, meaning vegetables, meat, avocado, tomatoes, all of those things. But there are times when you do need substitutions. Let's say you're going to have a football party in your living room, or you have a barbecue, or you want to entertain the kids in a birthday party. So what we do is, and many of my recipes, we do this. We substitute the wheat flour, grains, and we use things like coconut flour and almond flour, seeds, and nut meals. You can recreate a pizza. You can make donuts. You can make bagels, cupcakes, scones, muffins, cookies. You can have all those things, but we're going to have to recreate them using benign ingredients that don't raise blood sugar, that don't stimulate appetite, that don't disrupt your bowel flora, that don't they put you back in control. I made a pizza this past weekend. It was filled with mozzarella cheese and sun-dried tomatoes and onions and garlic and salami. It was delicious.
I have not had salami or bacon or any of that for such a long time, and I guess that I'm going to see what happens with my stomach, because I've been retrained. My brain has been retrained to say I don't want those meats. I don't want them because I want to make sure that I live a long, healthy life. And so I'm looking forward to doing this, and I'm looking forward to healing my gut, because I still, and I've said this, I've been very open that, you would think with us how healthy I eat that I wouldn't have any other side effects, but I do. And Dr. Davis keeps telling me it's SIBO. And so I'm going to stop. I need to stop and create this yogurt. I've got it in my Amazon, like getting the yogurt maker. So I'm trying to decide which one I want. And so that's going to happen pretty soon. So if anybody thinks that they have SIBO, let's do this together. Let's do the SIBO thing together. Dr. Davis, once you sign up for the Super Gut, we will send you Dr. Davis' course and how to get rid of SIBO. Would you like in a few minutes share what that SIBO video is about?
So as you see, it's a bit of a complicated thing. So how do you recognize whether you have SIBO? By what I call telltale signs. How to use the air device if you're so inclined. You don't have to, but it is helpful. And then the choices you have to eradicate it. You have a choice of conventional antibiotics. There are 2 herbal antibiotic regimens that have been validated, at least to some degree, with clinical studies. And then lastly, the rationale behind this SIBO yogurt, that you can use microbes to eradicate SIBO. We'll do the formal clinical trial down the road, but right now it's anecdotal, but anecdotal on a fairly substantial scale.
Yeah.
And I'm convinced it works. And you know what? You're just going to have your yogurt with some blueberries and some sunflower seeds. It's delicious. And it's performing, Lily, far beyond my expectations.
And I can do my yogurt with coconut milk. That was really a good. So when I started looking at it, I'm getting because there's some. I've got to get the microbes. I got to purchase the microbes and create it. And it's just like, okay, I'm gonna have fun. I'm gonna have fun doing this. And I also want to tell you, for those of you, there's a product called Gut to Glow. And I've been using it for a couple of months, and I've noticed that my skin's been glowing. I don't know what's in here, Dr. Davis, but it's people are saying, what are you holding out on me for? What are you doing? What are you doing? So I'm really excited to share this product also during the Super Gut. Any final words, Dr. Davis, before we go? This has been great.
Well, I formulated that product, Lily, because in response to all the ladies who said, we love the yogurt, Lactobacillus rhodori yogurt, but we're sick and tired of making it. Or I want to travel and I don't want to bring in a yogurt making machine or other device. And so I formulated that for convenience, added some other things that we know have beneficial effects on skin. And so far, ladies have loved it.
Well, I am in the process of loving it. I am in the process of loving it. And so, because I'm still, as you know, I'm very skeptical about everything, and I'm going to try it. I'm going to push it. But I'm excited that we're going to have this as an option for the Super Gut. And so I'm going to see if I can get some discounts for all of you as we move forward and create the final August 1st. When we first get there, we'll have some fun things that will be at discounts, and hopefully I can get the Air device for a discount. So hang tight, join the Super Gut, go to whenyouneedafriend.com, click on the link, and let's continue to grow together. And thank you so much, Dr. Davis, for everything that you're doing. I am so excited about learning more and growing with you and doing this workshop with you. So thank you. Thank
you, Lily. See you in August.
That's right. Well, I'll see you next month because you're coming back. And please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott and Dr. William Davis, wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any